Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all with us. So we have a special guest today, Luc Hennekens, with us. Luc is straight from AWS, and instead of oversimplifying what Luc is doing, Luc, can I ask you to, say hello and explain what do you do in AWS? What is your role?
Sure. Thank you, Michael. And hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be here and to be talking about clouds, one of my favorite topics. In fact, it's more than my favorite topic. It's my job to talk about cloud and about digital transformation. So I'm part of a team in AWS that's called Enterprise Strategy.
Right.
And what the Enterprise Strategy team does is it works with customers to help them accelerate their own transformation to get maximum business benefits. And we do that because all of us, and there's about 20 of us worldwide, have been senior executives in large AWS customers. So in my case, that was Airbus, where I spent 4 years as CIO. And prior to that, Qantas in Australia, where I was CIO also for about 4 years. So all of us have this experience ourselves of leading transformation, introducing cloud and getting benefits from it. And that's really what we use to help our customers and help them go faster and get more value from it.
So actually, we may say that on one hand, you did it with AWS, and right now you are telling the other customers on what you have did, so they can follow some of your experience, some of your roadmaps, or some of your thoughts about that. So is it?
Yeah,
would be, okay.
Exactly. I think for a lot of customers, they by now understand the reasons to move to cloud. They understand the let's say the theory about agile ways of working, about being close to the customer, about rapid innovation. So all of these themes have been around for quite a while. What is harder for a lot of customers is to transition from, the organization and the culture that they have to an organization that's truly, as we say in Amazon, customer obsessed,
right?
And able to innovate very rapidly and do that by, experimenting and taking risks. And so, having been through that in larger organizations is certainly helping us to understand where the customer is coming from, and in some cases help them with ideas on how they can go about it. Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly the thing I would like to talk with you, because you've been working in very big customers, for very big customers. You've been working with large transformations, but you also have been working across different geographies, if I'm not mistaken. Australia, New Zealand, I think I saw United States, don't remember, but probably Belgium.
Europe, Latin America.
Yeah. So as you know, so adoption of the cloud is different across different geographies, different industries. In Poland, I would say we are still at the very early stage. Many customers will say, Michał, you are wrong, because lots of things are happening, but the numbers, the penetration of the cloud in the traditional IT, I would say, is still low or at the very beginning. And this is the question I always ask. So what is from your experience, how do you perceive what would be this trajectory for those companies who are eager to utilize the value of the cloud, and how they may set their path, their roadmap for that, having those experience you have, how to start with that, how to do that?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's true that there's differences between industries, there are differences between geographies, absolutely. But if you look at it at a global level, we're still at the very, very early days of cloud adoption. I mean, we estimate that somewhere between 5 and 10% of the IT spending is currently going to the cloud. And that's underestimating the total number, because cloud will address a lot of use cases that have never been able to be addressed by traditional IT, right? So it's even less than that if you think about all the opportunities. I think the adoption clouds can be introduced in two ways. You have either the IT-driven cloud, where people are looking for scalability, people are looking for reliability, cybersecurity, cost reductions. And so that's often a case of migrating existing functionality into the cloud from the data center.
Right.
The other path that companies take is more focused on business innovation. So where you want to innovate your customer experience or even your internal processes, but really trying to use the tools in the cloud to innovate your own business, regardless of the applications that you had in the past. And exactly. I tend to think that second way is a faster way of adopting cloud, maybe not in numbers of servers, etc., but in terms of, demonstrating to the organization what the benefits are of cloud and how you can get to those benefits. But to be honest, it can go very fast. In my previous employer, it took us about 7 months to get a working platform, a B2B database that was going to cover data from across the life cycle of the product, across all players in the industry.
Right.
And after 2 years, we had 14,000 users. We had something like 8,000 aircraft feeding data into it. And this is for a company that wasn't used at all to, internally develop and deliver software. So again, I think yes, there are some trends. There's no doubt that the US is probably ahead of most regions in the world. But we are still at the very start. And I think depending on what the company is trying to do, it can go very, very fast to see results and to get benefits. Mm-hmm. And maybe the other thing I would say about that is, cloud is not just about introducing new technologies. It's really about a different way of working that is enabled by those new technologies. And so, that is probably the part that takes the most energy and that takes the most time, is to, wean the organization off its existing habits and ways of working and learn new skills and start to work in a different way that's closer to the customer, that's, making decisions more rapidly, that's taking risks and innovating faster in that way. And so if you want to move fast, you want to get to benefits fast, I think the key is to not only focus on the technology, but to really spend a lot of energy on, transforming the organization itself, its culture, its way of working.
Actually, you probably that kind of, analysis, but I was responsible for the Cloud Connect this year when you had your session, and I was also responsible for the Cloud Connect the last year. We did it for the first time, and the difference between those two is exactly what you have just said. We've been very focused on the infrastructure, on the architecture, on the lots of things which are, part of this technology cloud brings last year. This year, even those who are, doing a solution architecture for their customers, they were talking about the architecture, but they were always saying the same thing. It's more about the mind shift or a process shift than a technology shift. Of course, technology is a key, but without the other part, well, you will not get the results you would like to have. And that's actually the question which I wanted to ask you, because, for such a big companies you've been working for, which are multinational, has lots of legacy technologies, which are doing great business. I mean, from the business perspective, they were probably doing very, very well. So, and then you come with the approach, with the technology, with the changes, and then what you will find out is that you have to do a major change as a, it's a change management thing rather to deal with rather than the technology. And you have the fear, you have the resistance, you have lots of things which are saying to people, no, we should not do that because of a number of things. How to deal with that? I mean, how to deal with the resistance? Well, it will come for any big company, right? Anyway.
Yeah, right. Resistance is just a natural part of any change. And I think the important thing is to recognize that resistance just doesn't happen. Resistance happens because people imagine a bad outcome for themselves. Like the reality is that most employees, their first concern is not the well-being of their company or the profit that goes to the shareholders. Their first concern is their own growth, their own well-being at work, their ability to deliver value, to be respected by their colleagues, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you have such a big change as cloud represents, such an incredible shift in not only technology, but also in philosophy of how you get innovation done, then obviously people are going to ask themselves questions on what does that mean for me? So for instance, if I've built up 20 years of expertise in, managing my own data center or aspects of that, and now somebody's telling me that that's obsolete, well, am I out of a job? And I think the good news there is that one, I've never really met any people who after the transformation felt that worse off. right? Everybody finds a spot in that new world because its technology still needs to be planned, managed, architected, operated. Those fundamental tasks don't go away. It's just the way that it's being done. And the second fear that a lot of people tend to have, especially in the technology departments, is, this is such a generational shift in technology. Am I going to be able to reach the same level of expertise as I had in the old technology? And again, that fear goes away very, very quickly when people start to follow courses and get certified, because you recognize that, cloud, the beauty of cloud is that it's, ready-made components that you don't have to understand in the detail because somebody else is managing them for you. What you need to do for your company is to put the components together in a system or an application that provides value for your customers. Mm-hmm. And so very quickly when people, do their trainings and get certified, they find out that actually it's very stimulating, and they can absolutely play a very critical role. And so when that fear goes away, a lot of the resistance goes away. But there's a lot of explaining to do, right? Because the changes are big. You need, finance needs to understand what's changing for them.
Oh yeah.
Procurement needs to understand what changes for them. HR needs to understand what changes for them. And you almost, I think, as a senior leader, are going to spend 80% of your time explaining to people again and again and again what it means, how it works, why it's beneficial, and what adjustments need to be made.
Exactly, and how it changes our organization from the process perspective, because all the things you've mentioned, this is lots of those things are about the process. And if you want to change those, procurement, for example, this is a tricky one for us as a technology people who are working with the cloud. It's easy. For the big companies, the procurement of buying cloud services, this doesn't sound like an easy process. How I can compare cloud providers, how I can choose the best offer. Will I choose the offer every single time I want to provision some VMs? Well, those are the natural processes for your own data center in cloud.
Procurement is used to buying commodity services by going to the market and getting the lowest price for a specified outcome.
Yeah,
and then and then committing to that for 3, 4, 5 years or more and getting a discount based on that commitment. And now they're looking at cloud and buying something as a service where there is no commitment. Like you can start using a service, you just pay whatever the unit cost is, which is often very, very little when you're still experimenting, and you can stop using it and you stop paying, right? It's a very different model. But the input of procurement is still very, very important, because one of the things that you do in cloud is to make sure, once you get some maturity, that you look ahead and you sort of project out what your optimized spend is going to be. And then the more you commit upfront to that spend, the lower your unit cost is going to be, obviously, because suppliers want that certainty as well. And if they get that certainty, they're able to provide you with a better cost. So again, it's not that the fundamentals are going away or disappearing. It's that the way in which you do it is different. And that's where people need help, is to, understand that their role is still, substantially important, but the way in which they're going to fulfill it is going to be different.
I would come back to that thing, because I would like to also talk what is so special about the cloud computing that it has so big and rapid impact on the whole company. But I also would like to touch to the point of the product innovation, because on your official AWS biography, if I can say so, we may find some information about your experience, but we also may find the information that you will be also very, very strongly connected with the product innovation for some of your for some of your previous employers. Product innovation is something very, very, it's a different nature. It's not about technology. It's more about the product, about the analysis, about the services, customer experience, lots about that. But can you share somehow, or share some of your experience, how in here cloud was a great asset which was helping you to innovate, maybe to deliver faster, maybe to lower the cost of the service, anything which was related to that? Because I think this is a part of your story, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, customer experience and product design
Right.
is something I'm really interested in. And let's start with answering the first part of your question. So, what is so different about cloud? And there are many things that you can mention. And of course, it can reduce your cost. It can increase scalability tremendously. You can scale in no time. In fact, you can scale globally, which is very hard to do otherwise. Security is much improved, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, the absolute killer feature of the cloud is the ability to go incredibly fast in innovation. And there's a few reasons why cloud enables that. The first is that trying out something new is no risk, right? A team can simply, turn on some service, whether it's blockchain or whether it's artificial intelligence or machine learning or text to speech or a new database, whatever you can think of.
Yeah.
You have a cutting edge version of that available in the AWS cloud that can be used almost immediately with very little configuration in a secure way. And you can start experimenting. And if the experimentation shows you that you don't get the results you want, you stop using it. You've spent very, very little money, right? So think about what customers had to do in the past. If they wanted to try something new, you had to go buy the hardware. That's 3 months. You had to go buy the software. With the help of procurement and a good process, you can add another 6 months. And by the time that you have the stuff ready to start experimenting, you've sunk a lot of money and you spend a lot of time. And in order to sink that money and to spend the time, you're going to have to do a business case first, which add another number of months in front of the process. So, rapid experimentation in the traditional IT world is incredibly hard. And so what the cloud allows you to do is not only are you able to pick and choose any of these services that is available, but you can start using them with very little investment. And so you can start experimenting. And once you've defined or demonstrated the value of what you're building, it becomes a lot easier to say, hey, let's scale this thing up. Let's go to more customers. Let's invest in more resources because you've demonstrated it's working. So that's the first part. I think that's the key thing that cloud is adding here.
And if I can add something on that, and in the next 6 months, you'll get a newer, or in the next 3 months, you'll get a newer version with newer features done by AWS, and you don't have to plan it.
And you don't have to start up a project to upgrade, Oracle from version, X to version X plus 1, because somebody else is taking care of that. And by the way, it's all hooked into the same identity and access management, the same security environment. It's a true platform where a lot of the heavy lifting has already been done by somebody else. Absolutely. So then to take it to the next part of your question, when you were talking about how do you apply that to the customer experience or to the product? I think if you look at a company like Amazon in general, beyond AWS, one of the strengths of the company is that it's incredibly innovative. And its innovation is focused on one thing, is to meet customer needs and to meet them in, faster and better every single day. And the philosophy behind that is if you always focus on what the customer needs and what the customer sees as valuable, and you constantly try to figure out what that is by experimenting and by dropping the experimentation if it doesn't meet a need and by continuing the experimentation if it hits the mark, you make very small steps, but you make an incredible number of these small steps incredibly fast. And so in aggregate, if you look back after a month, half a year, you will have done a lot of innovation to your product or your customer experience. And more importantly, you will not have spent a year on investing in an innovation that you find out once you've delivered it didn't meet the customer needs, because you make these small steps and you constantly adjust based on customer feedback. And so what the biggest thing that customers are enabled to do using cloud is to be very close to their customers, and try out many different things and innovate at a very rapid pace and just adjust constantly based on customer feedback. And so that allows you to go fast, that allows you to not make big mistakes, or if you make mistakes, you know it very quickly. And that allows you also to very closely tie your innovation to what the customer actually wants and needs. And I think that's the key thing that cloud enables you to do. Mm-hmm. Now, what you also need to do, and this is a particular experience I've had in the first job where I started to work with cloud, is everybody in the company tends to have their own vision of what the customer experience should look like, right? You want to create an identity as a company. You want to make sure that, you know, your customers select you specifically for the experience they, you know, have come to expect from you. But we found out that every department in the company had their own interpretation of what that company's overall customer experience should be. And so, you know, catering had one view, engineering had another view, check-in had another view, commercial had another view, and they all thought they were on the same page. But when you started to compare in detail what everybody was saying, it was all going in slightly different directions. And so one of the key things to do to enable this rapid innovation that I just talked about is to have a very clearly articulated vision for what you want the customer experience to be. And if you make that very clear to all the teams, you can have many different teams that independently almost innovate towards that single end goal, but you know that everybody's pushing in the same direction and trying to create the same experience. So I think the power of the cloud with the organization that goes with it, you know, to enable that rapid innovation, that innovation based on constant customer feedback, constant trial and error and experimentation, and you know, rapidly iterating through that on the one hand, and supported by a very clear, well-articulated vision of what the customer experience for your company, for a given segment of the market should be, so that all of the innovation clearly, consistently goes in the same direction. I think those would be the two things that I think are really key to get right if you want to become very innovative.
So a shared vision, that's the one thing, shared goal, common goal for all the parts, but also the cycle, which you've mentioned, the innovation, the iteration. But does it also mean, and that was actually the question I wanted to ask you regarding your Airbus history. Of course, if you may share those details, does it also mean that you should speed up the cycle? Because what I see is that sometimes those cycles, you know, are long haul, and then the feedback comes late. Then it's difficult to introduce that. The product will have to be shipped. So it doesn't also mean that this cycle should be, you know, quicker, smaller in terms of the features or in terms of the goal you wanna achieve. And you know, how to deal with that, because this also means that we have to change the way we work on many different levels, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So many, I think most traditional organizations, you know, are operating based on the idea that if you have an idea, you start with an analysis phase and then a planning phase where you break the work down and work breakdown structures. And then you plot that over time, you define milestones, you define costs. And then once that is approved,
which sounds like quite reasonably, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Still.
Once it's approved, you go and execute the plan. The problem with that is if you try to work out in your mind everything that you need to do up front in a world where change is constant and where customers are very difficult to predict what they are really going to think of your service. And sometimes where the service or the product you're building is so complex that it's almost impossible for anybody to predict with precision what it's going to take. Then you might have a beautiful plan, but you start executing and you start focusing on implementing the plan, but it ends up being the wrong plan because it's made based on assumptions on the product or the customer that are false. And so, you know, what is really important is to start with, you know, accepting that you don't know a lot of what you will need to do and how you will need to do it. And so, you know, you need to give yourself the space in a part of the company to change the mindset and to say, you know, we know that there's a lot that we don't know yet, but we're going to start with some assumptions. We're going to start to deliver tangible things. We're going to go immediately to the customer to get feedback on that, as opposed to, you know, waiting for a year until we've delivered something. And the customer will tell us what they like and what they don't like. And then, you know, and in the same way, if we encounter technical issues, by starting small, we'll figure out along the way how to solve the technical issues in the best way possible. And so you end up really focusing on the value that you're creating, as opposed to chasing milestones because somebody half a year ago or a year ago put those milestones in a document, and now you have to meet those milestones. I think it's a very healthy thing for an organizational culture to have people constantly think about, what would the customer think of this? Let's ask, how does the customer react? What do they like? What do they not like? That really creates customer focus. If you're in a mentality where somebody designed a plan and you're focusing the organization on implementing the plan as planned, then you become internally focused and you start to forget about the customer, because it's not about the customer anymore. It's about meeting your plan's objectives and milestones. Sure. Right? So I think it's actually a very profound change to change your organization in a way that it's constantly measuring what they do in terms of the outcome, not in terms of, are we on track to meet the plan that we wrote a year ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now, what rings in my head is the statement done by Ford. I mean, who said that if you will ask his customers what they want, they would tell you that they want faster horses, and the real answer was that they want to change the place faster. So that's why they wanted, this was their future customers for the cars he produced, but. This brings us to the situation when I think it's a major shift, as you said in the beginning, because the cloud enables you to do those things. But then there you have the processes, then you have the teams, then you have the people, you have the product, and you have to change the cycle in which you deliver the product, which doesn't change only the technology, but it changes all of those things we've mentioned. And I think this is even bigger than the whole technological transformation we are talking about. But even if we say that, okay, let's assume that this technological change is a part of that story, it's still a big shift. I would say that it's still a big shift if you want to constantly develop and deploy in that manner. And after so many transformation you've did with your the previous employers, with the current customers, I have two questions. What will come next? I mean, we are constantly on this innovation path. We have the cloud computing technology. What will come next as next evolution of those services? Do you have this type of time in your busy schedule to think of what you as AWS will bring as a next cloud, version 2, whatever it will be called?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very interesting point that you make about, what Henry Ford said about people wanting faster horses. And there's a couple of things to say about it. I mean, look at AWS or Amazon. When it started AWS, nobody had asked for cloud services. There was no customer who said, please build this for us. But we clearly saw that the issue we had solved for ourselves, of having, rapidly scalable infrastructure that was available on demand, would solve a lot of the issues that our customers were also, dealing with. And so you always have a mix between figuring out on behalf of the customers what kind of solutions would meet their problems. You're not going to invent problems for them, but you can invent solutions to their problems that they haven't thought about. But the reality is still that, the vast majority of features that we deliver in AWS is based on customer feedback. That really drives, I would say more than 3/4 of our roadmap. Yeah. And so, we really focus on working with customers very closely and see what problems we haven't solved yet. What things we could solve better for them, what emerging problems there are that are going to need solutions. And based on that, we just keep on innovating. And when we started off 16 years ago, there was compute, and there wasn't even much storage to go with that compute, right? It was very, very simple. Now the compute has evolved to over 200 different instance types, right? Based on what you need. If you want to do inference, or if you want to do high input output, or if you want to do whatever the kind of compute is, you have the choice. And we have more than 200 services right now. So all that incremental adding to the portfolio of services is based on what customers want. And to me, that's what's gonna continue to happen. I do think there's going to be a shift more and more towards away from individual servers. We've seen that with virtualization many years ago. Now, the furthest away you can get from servers is obviously, serverless computing, and a lot of our customers are seeing the benefits. It makes the life of the developer so much easier. Again, you take a lot of the heavy lifting, the non-differentiating work, and you just give that to somebody else who does it at scale and does it very well. And you focus on the creative side of what's the functionality I want to bring to my customer, what's the analysis I want to do. So I think that's going to continue. But the reality is we develop what's next based on the feedback we get from customers. And so there isn't a 5-year plan where we know exactly what we're going to build, because that would be against the whole philosophy of trying to forecast the future. Look what's happened in the world in the past 2 years. Like even if you think you can forecast, it would be ludicrous to base your execution on that. And I think one of the things that Jeff Bezos often said is there's only one sustainable source of competitiveness, and that's agility, right? It's the ability to constantly sense what's happening in your environment with your customer, in the markets, with your people, and then adjust and adapt and do that very effectively, and do it faster than anybody else and more effectively than anybody else. That's the only way that you can stay ahead of the game. If you think that you can continue to be competitive because you have a great product today, well, think again. Somebody else is going to make a better product. Or if you think that you have the largest number of customers, well, that can change very, very quickly. We see examples every day of that, right? So, so the ability, and this is the same for us as AWS, as it is for Amazon, as it is for our customers. Being competitive in the next 10 years is really going to be about being able to very, very quickly react to your customers, your environment, and what's happening in the world, and doing that faster than anybody else.
On your market, on your geography or wherever you operate, right? I cannot agree more. When I was reviewing the Jeff Bezos letters to the AWS employees, I read them all from the very, very first day. It's not so many of those. It took me quite some time, but the agility and the ability to adjust, this is the thing which is always constantly happening in those letters, like, being open to the change. Actually, that's why he probably says, "Oh, it's always day one," because we always innovate, no matter how far we are with what we have did.
We never, you never want to sit down and say, we've arrived, we're now successful. We can, and it's interesting if your listeners are interested in this topic, I would recommend they read the letter to shareholders that Andy Jassy wrote. His first one just came out a few days ago. And he's really talking about this point of incremental innovation as being behind everything and anything we've done, whether it's Kindle or whether it's Amazon Prime, or every single time we start somewhere and we test it out in a small environment, and then we learn from that and we increase the footprint, and we learn from that, and then you make it more more mature, you add more features, but and this idea that innovation comes from big leaps and bounds is just not realistic anymore. You really want to go many small steps, and you want to make them very, very fast.
Actually, I was talking with one of the product managers in AWS, and I was talking with him about how you choose those features between the products, between the releases, how you look on that. And what struck me was really the focus of how you work with your community, with your customers, on defining what will be the best choice. And then I really understand that it's not only about saying that to the publicity that you are doing in that way, but the product groups which are working for AWS or Amazon are also working in that nature. So they are constantly evolving with a strong drive from the customers, with the strong feedback from the customers, which is coming to them as well, which was really, really amazing. I remember the days when the product groups were, closed. There were sales team and the product marketing teams, and those were the guys who were deciding about the next version. Right now, it's absolutely changed the way the industry that delivers those products. And you are guys really doing that in a very, very advanced way, I would say, on all the levels.
Yeah, and it helps avoiding, going for too long down a rabbit hole, which sometimes happens if somebody in a company thinks they have a brilliant idea and they go and spend a lot of time and effort developing it, perfecting it. They want all the features to be there before they go to the market, and then either they come to market and somebody else has done it better, or they go to market and it's a flop because they misread what the customer really needed and it doesn't work. So I think it's a great way of innovating. And to be honest, I think it's a great way for organizations to approach digital transformation, because there's so many organizations that, like you said before, they see the magnitude of the change and they get a bit fearful. And so what they sometimes do to mitigate the fear is to go to a different way of working, but only halfway, right? Yeah. So they do agile, but with sprints, but then they have a steering committee after every sprint. That doesn't work, right? Or they do product development, but they have somebody who's not part of the team give priorities to the team instead of letting that come from the value delivered to the customer. So I think the best way of mitigating that risk of having to do such a massive change is not to do a little bit of the change, but it's to take a part of the organization or some area of the organization, of the business, and go all the way. I really go all the way and apply all of these principles of agile innovation, being close to your customer, autonomous teams, all of this good stuff, but go all the way and give it a chance to really flourish. And then when you see that it's learning and it's improving and it's becoming more mature, you can start to increase the footprint slowly by adding other parts of the company to it, adding more employees to it, because they will assimilate to that way of working. And then you can go quite far and really drive transformation. So I think that's generally the best way of dealing with this idea that, wow, this is a big change. How do I go about it? Start small, but start with something meaningful. Don't do a cloud project just so that you can say you did a cloud project. You want to solve a meaningful problem or go after a meaningful opportunity, but do it with part of the organization. Go in with the mindset of learning a lot and set the organization up to learn. We don't do that enough. Right? Most organizations in traditional organizations, their objective is to not screw it up. Don't make any mistakes. That's not a way to get people to be innovative, right? You want to set them up for learning and growing. So you don't disincentivize them to make mistakes, but you incentivize them to learn and do better next time. And you show that, right? In my last job, we spent a lot of time picking the right metrics to demonstrate velocity, ability to forecast our own outputs, value delivered. And the initial results weren't what we wanted. They were way below our benchmark, but it didn't matter because it was the first attempt. What mattered was that the second attempt, we did 5% better. And the third attempt, we did 5% better again. And so, over a year, we could demonstrate the curve was going up, and it was going up faster because we weren't worried about getting it wrong. We were worried about learning and doing it constantly better. Yeah. And if you get your organization there, you can do incredible things.
Yeah, and once you will do that for the one part of the thing, the next big thing in front of you is to scale it across, because this will eventually you will bring the difference, across different parts of your.
Yeah, and you can demonstrate, both what that different way of working looks like in practice, and you can demonstrate the beneficial results of it. Right? I see too many organizations that spend a lot of time trying to convince the rest of the organization academically, I would say, of the benefits of cloud and being closer to the customer. And, people hear the words and they say, yes, sounds interesting. And they go back to their existing jobs. When you demonstrate that you've done it, people start to ask questions. It's, okay, but how does that work? How did you solve that problem? And then you can show what you actually did. So that gives a lot of confidence that it's actually real and that it can be replicated, can be done elsewhere.
Yes.
And you can also demonstrate that it's delivering results and that it's delivering quality, happy customers, good products, better customer satisfaction ratings. And so you don't have to convince people because the data is there.
Yeah. I remember one director of IT from NHS in UK who said that this process, as you have described, is like an alcohol. Once you try it, you drink more because it's so rewarding. I mean, at some point, if you really work in that way and you get the effect, it's so rewarding, so you want more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And employees start to realize how terrible it is to work in a traditional organization.
In a traditional way, right? Exactly.
And they don't want to go back. They really don't want to go back.
Really, I remember one AWS hero back then on one of the conferences in Poland who said that even if I will get more money in a different company, but who's not working with cloud and with that way of working, I wouldn't change my job. I'm so addicted is a bad word, but I'm so comfortable with this way of working that I want to stick with it instead of getting more, but working in a different environment. And I think, look, I don't know if you agree with me. This is the very good summary of our conversation. Thank you for all your thoughts. I really appreciate that. And
it was my pleasure.
Thank you. It was
great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Good luck to everybody who's on the journey or thinking about it. And don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be more than happy to talk to you.
Thank you, Luc, again. And yes, so we'll, I will redirect the people to your profile and to the letter of for shareholders from Andy, because I think there are really good starting point to get into that track. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
Have a good trip wherever you go. Hope your plane will not be late, and talk to you later.
Thank you so much, Michael. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.